Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
All right, guys, season 2, episode 1. Today we have a true thought leader in the HR space. He is a ex-hedge fund entrepreneur that has successes and failures on both extremes. His failure kind of went into bankruptcy at one point. His success on the next business brought him to the selling table with a company that some may know as Salesforce. He is a best-selling author, startup veteran, and has just a really interesting expectation of what the job landscape is going to look like in the future. What I especially can't wait to share is I lived in Boston after college as a Yankee fan, taking the T through Fenway Park to my office downtown Boston. And you went to Harvard as a diehard Yankee fan. And I don't know if I really want to get into the Yankee season because we started off really strong, but really has been shitty over the past couple of weeks. But our guest, podcast episode 16, season 2, episode 1, Jeff Wald.
There's applause. Wow. I'll take applause.
Yeah, well, you know, we got to be thankful for you coming on because we're thankful for all our guests coming to share our experiences and having a little rap session. You know, it's your time. We find it valuable. We want to make sure that we give you the.
I appreciate the love, man. I appreciate the love. Well, first off, it is such a pleasure to be here. Very excited to dive in and talk about startups and the future of work and wherever we go.
All right, you just stole my first hit list item. So yeah, I mean that's where I'd love to end up. I want to talk about startups, biggest wins, losses, kind of the advice that you bring entrepreneurs to getting in business, and I think that both of us can really get into some interesting space here. And then I also want to touch on your book, The End of Jobs. I think it's super interesting because, I mean, globally, business has just changed so dramatically in the past 30 years. And over the past couple of years, technology has really picked up that pace of change. And I find your concept super interesting. So I'd love to get into that a little bit. Is there anything else that you want to chat about?
As long as we're avoiding the Yankees right now, that works for me.
Love it. I'm out. So
we can talk about the Jets too. I mean, you know, if you really want to get into the misery, but that's okay.
I'm going to stay away from that one with a 10-foot pole because there's just way too much drama going around the QB position right now. And let's stick to startups, man. This is what this is all about.
Compared to that.
Let's talk about making money instead of losing games. Dude, so author, best-selling. Talk to me a little bit about The End of Jobs because I find the concept just super interesting. And I think that the people here, you know, mostly business owners, I think, are listening to this where, you know, we're talking about how do we set up what you call the self-managed business, or how do you get your business to a point where it's running itself, not you and your time. And I love these opportunities to talk to guys and girls like you because it just brings a wealth of experience in terms of what you've done, what you've been through. And this theory is just super interesting as you start to think about finding the right people for the businesses that you're operating.
Well, I'll tell you this, Bobby. The book was born out of annoyance and frustration. You know, as a person that was building a company in HR tech, and we were doing quite well, and we were leading the, you know, gig economy evolution. That company was called Work Market, provided enterprise software for companies to manage their on-demand workers. So while everyone's heard of Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and Instacart, we were powering corporations to do the same thing, to create an on-demand economy. And to be more clear, we were helping those that already had done it to be efficient and compliant in doing it. We weren't, you know, nobody suddenly was creating an entire 1099 workforce. That said, I would go to conferences and I'd give speeches and be on panels. And it gets very frustrating when you're at these things and people start running their mouths without having facts. And I find that incredibly frustrating in all aspects of life. And I'd be on panels and people would say, oh, I think 50% of the workforce is going to be on demand by 2020. And I'm like, what? That is literally has a 0% chance of being true. And I would say, what data are you basing that assumption on? They would literally, when you ask that question, by the way, it is fascinating the kind of responses you get, because it's mostly, well, I don't have any data. To which my response is,
Hold on, let me
"Won't
check
you
my Instagram
shut
post.
up?"
I think I saw it on one of those Instagram posts in my reel. Right? I mean, it might as well be at that point.
Like, look, if you want to talk to your friends, great. If you're speaking in the public square without data, you just need to shut up. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be talking, because people start planning their lives, their businesses, families, communities on what experts say. And the breaking point for me came right at the beginning of the pandemic, right before the book was actually, we're putting the final touches on. And one guy said, I think 50% of the workforce is going to be remote when this is all done. And I just was like, okay, well, how do you juxtapose that with the fact that only 42% of the workforce can work remotely? And he said, well, I didn't know that. I was like, well, shouldn't you know that? Shouldn't you know that before you open your mouth? Be that as it may, the book is focused on, let's look at history. Let's look at the data. Let's talk to the heads of HR that actually are doing labor resource planning at the largest companies in the world. And if we use those three lenses, Bobby, we don't suddenly create a crystal ball, but we have a logical, reasonable, and defensible point of view as to what the world is going to look like as AI and robotics continue to impact the labor force, or what we'll call the fourth industrial revolution. So if we're going to opine on the fourth industrial revolution, we darn well better understand what happened in the first, the second, and the third. We darn well better understand what exactly is the landscape of data going through the labor force over the last 20, 30 years. And we darn well better talk to the CHROs that are leading the labor force planning conversations at the great companies all around the world.
Yeah, it's interesting because you hear, I would say, people who are very pro AI and people who are very scared of the AI revolution. And the fear is they're going to take over my jobs. They're going to
Sure.
take over my business. I am going to be irrelevant or extinct once these things get in full stride. And then you have the other side of the pendulum that is saying, wow, how much more efficient can we be? And how much more can we get humans to work at a higher level to where they're working in conjunction with AI to just have greater output or a faster, move that pace of technology faster, get us into this, what you call the fourth revolution. What does that, from an imagery perspective, what does that look like in a business, the way that you kind of laid it out in your book?
I'll tell you this, the way we lay it out in the book is the kind of Terminator scenario versus the Rosie Jetson scenario, right? In the Terminator Skynet scenario, the robots take over, it's terrible, it's dystopian. In the Rosie Jetson scenario, the robots and AI are doing all of our mundane tasks, and we can focus more on higher value things and science and learning and art and family and things like that. And neither one of those are true. I mean, as with most things, the truth is somewhere in that muddled middle. Some jobs will be lost. Some jobs will change drastically. Other jobs will get created. The data would tell us that on balance, we will have no net job losses. And the important word there is net. There will be some job functions, some job classifications that get very, very tremendously impacted, either because they change or jobs will be lost. But there will be new jobs created and other jobs that are expanded, and therefore no net. And Bobby, you raise a very interesting point, right? People have that fear. But I will tell you this sentence, this new technology exists, therefore that job goes, has never been true. It's just never true. It changes, but it doesn't always go, certainly in the near term and even medium term. Over the long term, all bets are off. But the example we talk about in the book is the ATM. Do you know what ATM stands for?
Something transaction machine.
Automated teller machine.
Automated teller machine.
It is so it doesn't even disguise what it wants to be, man. It is a machine that automates the job of the teller. That's what it is. That's its freaking name. Right? Which, by the way, people that say ATM machine, I'm like, no. ATM has machine in it. That's automated teller machine, just ATM.
It's redundant.
So anyway, the ATM, when it first came out, by the way, September 2nd, 1969, the first ATM appeared. It takes 25 years for this machine to appear in every bank branch in the United States. 1995, sorry. In 1995, Bobby, there are 500,000 bank tellers in the United States of America. And what do you think everybody was predicting about bank teller employment in the United States
Go
of
to
America?
zero.
It's going to go to zero. Oh my God, there'll be no more tellers. Do you know how many tellers there are employed in the United States of America right now?
Probably the same similar amount.
600,000. Went up. Now, so that's the headline. Here's the analysis, right? And here's what you have to do when you start thinking about new technologies. The number of bank tellers actually dropped by half on a per branch basis because it did make the teller more efficient. And the teller now can come out from behind the glass, cross-sell you a mortgage or a loan, talk to you about investments, talk to you about other banking products, right? So the number of bank tellers went from 21 per branch down to 13, but the number of bank branches almost doubled because of Glass-Steagall being repealed, because of competitive factors, banking regulations, the competitive environment, right? If I walk into Citibank and there's just a wall of ATMs to service me, but I walk into Chase and they greet me and they give me a lollipop and they say, "Oh, Jeff Wald, how are you?"
Yeah. You can't lose that
What am I
feeling
going back to?
just
Right?
because there's a computer there. Or
Right. Obviously, I'm going back to Chase. They give me a lollipop. I love lollipops. So the point of the whole anecdote is that any simple analysis belays the mass complexity that goes into labor resource planning. So we just need to be really careful with this new tech exists, therefore this job's going to go. It always happens in a very complicated way. It always happens over a very extended period of time. And we have to just be very thoughtful when we think about how the world of work is going to evolve.
Humans are unbelievable beings. I mean, our ability to change, adapt, evolve is so much greater than we give ourselves credit for. And that's the whole like move my cheese mentality. Like nobody likes change, yet they're so capable of change and adapting to change. And I think that the fear is really change. Fear is I don't know what that looks like. That viewpoint is blurred and distorted from where I sit. So I don't like it.
You're right.
I don't want to go there.
True. And to your point earlier, by the way, this change is happening much more rapidly. We can look at the television or the telephone, and it takes 50 years, 100 years to get to 100 million users, whereas ChatGPT had that done in like a week.
Yeah.
And so the changes are more rapid. The first, second, and third industrial revolutions are measured over decades, one case centuries. This will be measured over 15 years, maybe 10, right?
I mean,
so this change is happening rapidly.
We even see just the change in our industry in terms of the investment management space. We see markets moving a lot faster in the upward and downward direction. The corrections are faster. People get information faster. They have accessibility, greater accessibility than they've ever had. And I think that that's true across industries. The accessibility, the information, the ability to make a decision and execute on it. I mean, even if I want something, I don't have to make a note and say, "Oh, I'm going to go to the store and I have to get this, 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 and this." I pick up my phone and I go to Amazon and I go, boop, 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 check out. All right. It'll just come right to me.
Yeah, look, that speed of convenience is very, very powerful. We're still adapting as a society to having everything at our fingertips because sometimes it's too much, right? Is that the right place we want to end? Is that the most efficient means of getting that product to you?
Well, not when you see the amount of cardboard that stacks up in my garage.
Right. There are environmental costs for this distributed retail environment. It used to be all the trucks went to one place. We went to that place. We got the stuff. Now the trucks are going everywhere. Who knows, right? I won't pretend to know what's more efficient and where society will end up. I do pretend to know that when we look at history, we look at data, and we look at how companies actually engage workers, these changes are very thoughtful and they happen over a discrete period of time, not a rapid shift.
Yeah, no, definitely. So where do you see, let's make a little pivot because I want to get into talking about startups. I know that this is your ballywick. Also, you've been a part of a number of startups. You have one that you're working in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about your experience and the things that you've kind of been through in the startup space and why you get so excited about it.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. It's not like I grew up with a lemonade stand and shoveling walks and it was always entrepreneurial. That just was not me. I started my career at JP Morgan and I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run this bank one day. Like that's my goal in life, was to be there for 35, 40 years. Very old school way of thinking, right? One job, whatever. That's not the path I took. After business school, I ended up working at a venture capital firm, and I got just enamored with entrepreneurship and startups. I would literally, Bobby, sit there and be like, oh my God, that's so cool. What you guys are doing is so cool. That's so great. So much so that my boss at one point grabbed me. He's like, can you stop fawning over these people? Like, we have to negotiate with them. You spend the entire meeting telling them how great they are. I was like, but they are great. He said, well, if you think it's so great, go and do it. We'll back you. So about a year later, I had come up with an idea and I took half of his advice. I left and did it. I did not have them back me. I funded it myself. In the hubris of youth, I thought, I'll own 100% of the business. Everybody else is stupid. Well, fast forward 2 years and the company is out of business because I am out of cash.
Yeah.
And that was a failure. And look, startups are about failures. Some of those failures are small when you're doing your day-to-day. An employee leaves, a customer leaves you, an investor doesn't get over the finish line, right? You get these little trips. And so you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. The startups that succeed are the ones that persist, that just push through those knotholes and find a way to get to the other side. When I was out of cash, that was a big failure, right?
Cash burn in the first 2 years is one of the biggest impediments for a new business.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have so much time in a day and so much energy and effort, but you can push through. Cash is truly a limited resource at certain points.
Cash is oxygen, man. When you run out, you're dead and the game's over. So, okay.
How did that feel for you when you?
It sucked. It really sucked. Look, that was one of the hardest periods of my life. God willing, it will be the hardest period of my life. We'll see how the rest of life unfolds. Look, severely depressed, couldn't get out of bed. Got the call from my mom, do you need to move back home? And, having worked at these wonderful places and gone to these wonderful schools, suddenly to be hit like that and to be completely and totally broke, it's tough. It's really tough. But
because your ego the whole time is saying, I've been built to succeed.
Yeah. You're 100% correct. Look, I was not mentally prepared for that failure, and that made that failure all the more difficult.
So what was the point where you said, okay, time to take a 180 shift on here, and
I never said
out of this funk?
I never said it. People came to me and physically dragged me out of the apartment.
Wow, that's a good infrastructure you have around you.
Yeah. Look, there have been many things that I've been blessed with, and my family is obviously at the top of that list. My older brother physically came to the city and dragged me out of the apartment. He was like, all right, we're done here. Let's go. Get back on the horse. And look, I won't pretend that I'm 100% recovered from it. I won't pretend that I don't think about it from time to time, like what could have been, the mistakes I made, the decisions that I made that were wrong, and how at the end of the day, I am the one responsible for that.
What is the one or two things that you perseverate over? Like you really, truly just hit you so viscerally that you're like, man, I could have changed that.
I'll tell you, it hits me very viscerally because we ended up restarting that company, by the way, and that's the company we sold to Salesforce.
Okay.
And so this was 4 years later. And if we had executed on it from the beginning, how much bigger it could have become. And that's what I think about. I think about kind of take two and all the things we finally got right. I finally got right and was capable of being confident enough to make the decisions because we didn't make any decisions that were so different. We just made them quicker. And so the thing that I wish I could look back and grab younger Jeff and just be like, believe in yourself. You can do this. Because younger Jeff just didn't. He had the imposter syndrome. He had all the stuff. Okay. I don't know how you shake that out of somebody when they're younger. I think you have to go through the fire.
Do you think you just had to experience it and go through it to actually get to that point? Do you think that you could have gone to that younger Jeff and really kind of smacked him across the face and said, dude, you're here, own the moment, be that person? And that younger Jeff would have been that person? Or do you think you needed to feel that?
I think you need to go through the fire. I'm not sure that these are lessons that can get taught. They would have helped, right? But once you're down in it, you got to just get yourself out of it or have your family, your friends, whatever, help pick you up. But you got to go through it. Before I got there, maybe, right? A year before the company went bankrupt, that kind of coaching, mentoring would have been helpful. But when I was in it, I had to go through it.
It's the experiences that we go through, successes and failures, and how we build upon them. I mean, the stories that we hear all the time are, it's like the resonation just happens from person to person to person because they're like, oh my God, I can resonate. And we all have our different experiences, but they're all kind of the same. It's all kind of that pick yourself up, dust yourself off, pull up your adult pants, and get
back in it.
back at it, because there's no supplement for hard work and determination and grit. You can't find a shortcut around that shit.
It is true. It is true, man. And I will tell you, when I was going through it, everyone's like, oh, this will be the best learning experience of your life. And I was like, shut up. I just want my money back. I was so angry. But, and I will tell you this, man, it wasn't selling that company that finally got me over it. It was selling the next one, by the way, that finally got me over it.
Let's run through kind of your I guess your history.
Sure.
What do the companies look like that you've been through?
So look, in between Spinbacks, as we say, because it was Spinback 1 and Spinback 2, that's what we called those companies. I worked at a hedge fund doing activist investing because, I needed a job. And, it's not like a big sob story for Jeff, right? Once Jeff got smacked in the head and got back in the game, he went and worked at a hedge fund. And I still sit on the boards of directors of some public companies from that experience, which has been amazing. I learned something every single board meeting. Love it. Then we did Spinback 2, and then I started a company called WorkMarket. WorkMarket is the enterprise software that enables companies to manage their on-demand workers. That company, Bobby, was a big endeavor. That company, we ended up raising about $100 million from SoftBank and a few other VC firms. And that company got sold to ADP. And that was a great outcome. My team made money. My investors made money. And I had the pleasure of serving on the senior leadership team for 2.5 years at ADP. And that was amazing.
Now, are there any kind of regulation hurdles that you had to go through with the 1099 gig work?
Great question. Yeah, regulatory overhang was the biggest headwind we faced, right? Every single time, court case against Uber, every one of my sales cycle would come to a screeching halt, right? Like every single, Prop 22 in California, all my sales cycles came to a halt. And so it was very, very difficult. We would get down the road with a customer, they'd be like, oh, we're super excited. And then legal would come in and be like, no, we can't do this. And I mentioned earlier,
it's amazing how they can always stomp out the parade, man. They can always like pull the gas out of the room.
It is true. I mentioned earlier how there were literally 0 companies of the 1,000 companies that use WorkMarket, 0 that went from using no on-demand workers to finding us and then converting their labor force to a more 1099 model. That never happened. But what happened is that companies had 1099 workers, but they never knew who was where, who signed what legal agreement, who was working on what, who was good at what. And our software brought efficiency and compliance. And so the number of times that I took the meeting, though, for the former, where a company would say, look, we really want to evolve our labor force. And I'd be like, sure, I'm happy to talk to you, but it's never going to happen. And it never did. I'd still take the meeting, though. If Dell calls you and says they want to suddenly change their workforce, you jump on a plane, you go down to Austin, and you meet with Dell. But by the 4th time you get that phone call from Dell, you're like, ugh, all right, man, I'm going to come, but you're never going to do it.
Yep.
But now, when you're a little tiny company, you do what you're told.
Were most of these designs like bespoke? Were they for that company, or did you have a central system?
Great question.
Configuring.
I will tell you this, man. Very challenging industry, not only from a regulatory standpoint, but because you're dealing now with workflow and business process. We had KPMG as a client. When PwC came, they're very similar companies. 100% different. No similarity whatsoever. So we had to build very configurable software. You don't want to build customized software. That's a very, very, very bad path for a software company and a startup to go down. But building software such that we can configure the environment, that was one of the keys to our success.
So are you still doing work in that space? I mean, you wrote the book, you sold the company. Not. What's that?
Absolutely not.
So what's next?
Look, I called the book The End of Jobs, Rise of On-Demand Workers and Agile Corporations, because the on-demand worker has a lot of kind of canary in the coal mine vibe to it, right? The regular workforce is starting to take on attributes of the on-demand worker. work broken up into tasks, more and more responsibility put onto the worker for their own training, the development, and their career progression. The notion of retirement looking very different, right? We went from the defined benefit pension plan to a defined contribution plan to a 401k with a big match to sometimes those matches going away. So more and more burden falling onto the worker, which is what the on-demand worker feels every day, are falling onto the full-time workers. That's why I called it Rise of On-Demand Workers. But I will tell you, as I came out of retirement, after I left our friends at ADP in September of 2020, was when my handshake agreement with the CEO of ADP ended. I was like, all right, what should I build next? People are like, oh, well, you should build something back in the on-demand labor market. I was like, oh my God, no. I want nothing to do with that space. One, I will never do anything that competes with work market. Even though I have zero economic interest in it, it would be morally incorrect for me to build anything that competed with my old company. Those are still friends of mine. ADP is my favorite company in the whole world. I love them. I think they're amazing at what they do, and I love all the people there. So I would never compete. But two, it's a tough space. Like, there are easier ways to earn a living
That's a
than
tough
to do
space.
that.
Yeah.
And so as I thought about the small TAM that work market has, because not every company needs software to manage their freelancers, as I thought about the bespoke processes, as I thought about the fact that there was no clear decision maker. In some companies, the CFO ran it, some companies HR, and some companies procurement, and some companies contingent labor. There was no one profile we sold to, so every selling cycle was different. I wanted nothing to do with that. I wanted to found a company that has a very large TAM, that has a very specific buyer, that can be sold to very quickly. Work market was a 9 to 12 month sales cycle. I don't want anything to do with those things. So even though we're still in stealth and I can't really talk about it, we are building software that is available to every company on the planet, is sold directly to HR, can be sold in 5 minutes. Like, that was important to me, and that's what we're building.
So it's I love talking to guys like you because you're talking about the sales cycle and your ability to make this thing marketable and get it off of your plate, where we have a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with that are very focused on that as their way of living. And the conversation that we typically say is, doesn't matter whether you're 5 months, 5 years, or 50 years from selling this thing, you should always build it with a sale exit strategy in mind, because when you're shooting in the dark without a target, when you don't have a target, it's like shooting in the dark, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't have anything you're aiming to. And if you don't know how to value your company, how do you grow it to a place where you could successfully exit it and have that retirement? Because most business owners, they don't have their contribution plans. They don't have their retirement plan set up. Their retirement plan is their business where their money gets reinvested constantly. So I love hearing that. What are some of the things that you think about as you go into a business and you think about the saleability of it? Are there one of them you just said was how long it's going to take, but what else do you look at?
Well, I'll tell you a quick anecdote first. When ADP bought us, and ADP had a 6% match on the 401k, I gathered my entire team. We had a little over 270 people at the time. I was like, I want to be very clear about this. If all of you do not max to the 6% ADP match, please come see me so I can slap you in the face. Like, that is free
money,
after tax dollars that will compound for the rest of your lives. It has to be done. If there's a reason in your life that you can't do it, I will personally lend you the money to make sure that you are capable of getting that match. Like, it has to be done. I couldn't do it, right? For my team, we were a startup, right? Like, we were losing money every month. One of the great things about ADP. But I do say to founders all the time, few things. One, you should think about the 2 things, maybe 3, that you accomplish in this capital window. Because in tech startup land, right, we raise enough money for 18 months, maybe 20, and you have to accomplish 2 or 3 things that enable you to raise more money. And if you spend a second doing anything that isn't those 2 or 3 things, that is a mistake. Because if you don't raise more money, you're done. You're dead. Cash is oxygen. You didn't raise more money, you die. That said, you should always have an eye, just a glimpse of what it is that is your exit. And you should have that list of who are the people you will potentially sell the company to, and who are their heads of corp dev and strat. And you need to make sure you're on their calendars and you're on their minds. When they come to town, you go have coffee with them. You need to hear what they have to say about what's going on in the industry. They sit there and they think about that stuff all the time. It's their job. And their job is to meet with people like you.
It's amazing how people stray away from talking to their competition because they look at them as competition as opposed to that strategic mentality of how do we grow our network so you have your finger and your pulse on what's going on and what people
because when ADP says to the head of Corp Strat, hey, we want to do something in the on-demand space, who should we buy? Do you want him to not know about you, or do you want him to go, well, this company Work Market, I know the founder Jeff, I could call him up and see what the story is, and I'll get another list of other companies, but I know Jeff. Great. That being said, Bobby, I had my list of 20 people that could buy Work Market. ADP was not on that list.
Not one of them.
Not on that list. They were not. I will tell you, you want to tell you a quick story about the ADP sale?
I love it.
So look, I'm a keeper of lists, and people that build HR tech always get sent to me, whether it's because the VCs that I'm invested in or just friends with, and they're like, oh, you're building something in HR tech, you should talk to Jeff. There's nothing I'm going to say to an entrepreneur in a half-hour meeting with them is going to be so insightful. But what I can do is introduce them to people that raise money, that fund companies like theirs. So I keep a list of everyone that invests in HR tech, and I'm friends with them. And I say, oh, you're building something in this space. Here are the 7 people that love that space. Let me introduce you to them. So then I hear about ADP Ventures, which is, I assume, ADP's venture group. So I reach out on the LinkedIn to a guy named Jens Audenart, amazing human being. And I write, hey, we should know each other. What is ADP's check size? What are the types of angles you like? This and that. I'll send you companies. He writes, ADP's Ventures isn't what you think it is. We don't write checks. We're like an internal skunks works. But I know who you are and I know Work Market. I'd love to come down and meet with you. I was like, okay. So he comes down, we meet, I give him a little overview. I'd give my little talk on the future of work. We shake hands and I think, I will never see this guy again in my life. Good day to you, sir. He leaves, calls me like a week later. He's like, hey, can I come back with one of my colleagues? Can you do the whole future work thing? I was like, sure. I love to hear myself talk. So he comes back.
Give me a stage, a microphone. I love it. Let's go.
I love it, man. Come on down, baby. Next week, hey, can I come down with 2 more colleagues? 2 weeks later, hey, can I come down with 3 more colleagues? And this goes on for like a month and a half, 2 months, where he's coming down with more and more people, 5 people, 10 people. He calls me. He's like, hey, can I come down with 20 people? And
at what point did you go, listen, I'll just record this and you can keep it?
At that point, I broke because I don't have a conference room that can hold 20 people. So I have to use our event space where all the developers sit all day and do their work. So I got to kick everybody out. I was like, you know what? No, you can't. He's like, what? I'm like, no. You know what, man? Go F yourself. I'm done. I'm not your monkey where I dance every time you want to know about the future of work because you guys are too dumb to know what's happening. Like, no, I'm done. Like, you can't come. And there's a long pause. He's like, and I can hear him, like he doesn't know what to say or do. And he finally, after a minute and a half, goes, well, I wanted to come and talk about maybe buying Work Market. I was like, oh, well, come on down, man. I'll dance any way you want me to dance.
Give me my cymbals. I'm ready to go.
And so that began a 7-month process of ADP doing diligence. I mean, there must have been 1,000 people that came through the company. They are thorough and they dot their I's and cross their T's. And then it ended up with the sale of Work Market to ADP.
That's amazing that it ended up that way. So many times we talk about how you just have to draw the line in the sand and say, all right, my free value to you has ended. What are we doing here?
I mean, it's flattering, right? That ADP, the largest HR company on the planet, wants to talk to you. It's flattering. They want to hear your insight. But at some point, you're either a customer and you're generating revenue for me or you're not. And I can't spend any time on you.
So what are the, I guess, the 2 or 3 bits of advice you would give to people who are maybe thinking about a startup or struggling through a startup that you would say, hey, listen, full pause. Here's either things you need to think about, things you need to do, things that I've learned on my path that need to make sure that are taken into consideration here forward.
Sure. One is, let's be super clear about what problem you are going to solve. Let's be clear about whose problem it is and how big of a problem. And if you can't articulate that it's someone's very specific, a very specific persona in a company or a very specific consumer persona as a consumer, if you can't be very clear about how big of a problem it is, I'm not saying don't go. I'm just saying you need to be really thoughtful about that. So one, let's
do your research. Don't make up the numbers or listen to the Instagram posts on what the numbers are. Do your research.
Do your research. Whose problem is it? How big of a problem is it? And can be very clear about what that problem is, because that is the number one question an investor is going to ask you. Once you've discerned that, get on the phone with at least 10 of those people and say, hey, I understand that people like you have this problem. True. Yes, we'll assume it's true. Here's a potential solution. What do you think? And get that feedback. And importantly, get them to sign up. Cost you nothing, right? Just to say, hey, can you sign a beta contract with me that if I actually build this, you'll use it? When I went to go raise money for this new idea, I had 70 people that had said, if he builds this, I will use it. Companies from
It's validation.
very, very large companies to very small companies, different industries or whatever. I needed to prove to myself before I went and raised money, but to myself first, there was a very specific problem. Here's who it is. Here's how big it is. And here are people that when I speak to them, they say, yes, this is a problem. And that is a solution I would use to solve it. And then last, go and raise money. If you can fund it on your own, that's wonderful. God bless. But don't. Just don't. There are legions of people whose job it is to allocate capital to startups. There's a huge supply and demand imbalance. There is more capital out there than there are startups. So go and raise money. And if you can't, if the people whose job it is to give you money don't want to give you money, think long and hard about whether or not you want to do it with your own or your friends and family.
So I think that there's a big belief out there, especially in the startup world, and maybe startup ventures that aren't quite as large of endeavors as you're going into, that they want to maintain and keep as much equity as possible. They don't want to thin out their ownership. And I think that there's two schools of thought there. And one of the biggest school of thought is 100% risk, 100% reward. But how much are you limiting yourself? Because if you can make 1 + 1 = 3, 4, or 5, it's way better than 1 + 1 = 2. How do you talk to somebody and get them to think about things in through your lens?
Look, obviously everybody's situation is different. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. Everybody's backup plan is different, whatever it may be, Bobby. But the notion that you can go faster, the notion you can diffuse risk, the notion that you can get more people on your side, because if they put money in, they will help you. They will pick up the phone for you. They will make intros for you, for team members, for customers, vendors, whatever you need. I just think you are so massively increasing your probability of success. Look, as we started talking about, most startups fail, man. The data is the data. You have to be somewhat off to go and do this. Going in, you have a 90% chance of failure. What can you do to decrease that probability, to decrease the chance you're going to fail or increase the chance you're going to succeed? Capital is definitively a way to increase your probability of success. You can go faster. And then the capital you have can be backup to that capital. Mm-hmm. You get more people involved, blah, blah, blah. Customers and people saying they will use your product massively increase your probability of success. Everything we've done at this new company, by the way, with all these companies that have now signed beta agreements, over $1 million in ARR ready to go, still the most likely outcome is we'll fail. That's okay, right? It's still not below 50% that we're going to fail or above 50% we're going to succeed. It's getting close, but that's the data. Everything you can do to increase your probability of success, you have to do. And taking capital definitively increases your probability of success.
No words truer spoken. Listen, man, I appreciate your time. I know we're already encroaching on an hour, but before we part, just a couple things. One is, do you have any last words that you want to leave to our audience? I
think there are a few things that come to mind, Bobby. One is the idea that persistence is the highest thing you can do to increase your probability, right? And it does rest on the founder's shoulders just to keep going. And then as you build your team, one of my favorite quotes is, people won't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And to be mindful of that you're an entrepreneur and you have all kinds of guts and all kinds of intellect that got you to this point, but you need a lot of other people pulling those oars with you. And the way to get the most out of them is that they know how much you care about them. Are there any other principles that you fall back on or references that you would refer people to look at if they feel like they're maybe looking to grow faster, stuck in a rut? I think the advisory board is actually a very good thing. Having a few people around who have a very tiny little piece, just a little piece, a little taste of equity. But this is a lonely journey. And the more people you can have in your corner, the better, right? I was blessed to have a lot of family that was capable of helping me, not financially, mind you. My family has no money, but emotionally, they could help me. And they were. And
Which matters a lot, man. You can find money, but you can't find family like that.
no. Like, again, so many things I have been blessed with. Number one is the family I got to grow up in and growing up in this great country. But you need help, right? It's a lonely journey. And yeah, I always say you got to pick yourself up. And you do. At the end of the day, you are really alone. But the more people that can help you and prepare you to pick yourself up, or if needed, will put out that hand that you can just grasp to help get yourself up that one time that you got knocked down a little too hard. Surround yourself with great people.
Cheerleaders and reinforcers that can just keep your own self at a higher level and in a positive mindset, as opposed to falling into those doldrums. That's, that's where things fall apart. Well, dude, I hope that we have another opportunity to have a conversation about this. I find you completely fascinating, and I love your perspective. If we want to find you, where do we find you? We're going to put it in the notes, but maybe you want to just do a little shout out on where people can find you.
Sure. The only social media I use is LinkedIn, and that rarely, but LinkedIn. And then everything Jeff Wald related is on jeffwald.com, which I bought 25 years ago at the beginning of the internet and finally got around to putting some stuff up on last year. So jeffwald.com has got everything you need Jeff Wald related.
All right, guys, the book is The End of Jobs, and I encourage, it's a good read. You definitely should pick it up if you're into reading. If you're not into reading, then listen to it on Audible. We have no affiliation. Well, Jeff, listen, appreciate you, man. I love to hear your journey, and I love the fact that you're a new dad. I congratulate you on your new baby girl. Good luck with the sleepless nights and the forever not having yourself as the number one in your own world. She is now your number one.
I am super grateful to have been here, and I am super grateful for this little one who has been sitting quietly right over there, just minding her own business. So she's done a good job thus far. But
all right, guys.
She's only 8 days in.
Jeff Wald, season 2, episode 1, episode 16 in total. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.